I've been through this before. I don't want to be ugly about my views, but I want to be tactful and diplomatic. But you got to defend what you think is right. And I can't put myself into a pretzel trying to defend the indefensible. I want to do what's right and be on the right side of history.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, a quick weekend update on the ongoing story about President Trump's international war on tariffs. You may have heard Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon unveiled legislation last week to take back Congress's authority on tariffs from President Trump. His bill would require the president, any president, to notify Congress within 48 hours of imposing or increasing tariffs on imported goods. It would limit the duration of any tariff to 60 days unless Congress approves extending them. And it would clarify that Congress can end any tariff. Well, I had the chance to ask the congressman a question at his Washington, D.C. news conference. Here's that exchange with Congressman Don Bacon.
Next up, we have Dan Parsons, the Dan Parsons Podcast.
Oh, I see you on the video.
Hey, Congressman. Thanks so much. Thanks, Danielle. Congressman, on the heels of the administration seemingly abandoning Ukraine, our longtime ally, and blowing up an 80-year-old policy of defending democracy in Europe, and now an international trade war, are you concerned with the level of trust that we're losing with our allies around the world? And if so, what can Congress do to earn that trust back?
Well, I had just as one example, I had about 10 Danish CEOs in my office today, and some were Parliament people as well from Denmark. And they talked about the loss of trust and the feelings of hurt. You know, Denmark's been one of our best allies. All the people that served in Afghanistan of our allies. Denmark was number 2 for fatalities per capita. So they cherish America and our alliance, and they always have. They have one of the better air forces. I know this firsthand, being in the Air Force for 30 years. They've been very good about helping out Ukraine, but they oversee to a degree. There's some autonomy, but Greenland, they run Greenland, but they give a lot of autonomy to the people of Greenland, and they're very hurt by what's been said. And it's not just them. I don't know Canadians the same way, and so it does concern me. I have a worldview. I think it's 1980s and 90s worldview, but I would say the worldview some and others in my party are 1930s, so it's even older, right? The 1930s, the Republicans were isolationist. They were also protectionist, and they failed. I mean, we didn't have power in Congress for 60 years after the 1930s Republicans were in charge, and because the tariffs failed and isolationism failed. And I think Republicans learned our lesson, and we were different coming out of World War II, particularly Ike Eisenhower really made it pretty firm that our job is we're the leader of the free world, but we've got to have allies because we can't do all this alone. So we got to be a good ally ourselves. Well, I have that. That's what I believe. We got China is the long-term threat. They want to control their neighboring countries now. And they want to be the world's supreme power in 20 years, 30 years. And they're acting like it. And Russia is the near-term threat based on their behavior. They've attacked Ukraine. They're threatening the Baltics. They're threatening Moldova. They shot down now 2 airliners, or 3. They're severing underwater cables all over to try to create havoc within the European pro-NATO countries. So that's what they're doing now. Then we also have Iran, the world's exporter of terror. America can't stick our head in the ground and ignore what's going on. So we got to be that leader of the free world, but we should be humble leaders. And we got to realize we need allies. We can't do this all on our own. And so this is creating damage, and I'm worried about it. And we're going to have to, well, that's why when I talk to the administration, this is how I present. And hopefully I can serve as a conscience there. We cannot vacate Ukraine. It's in our national security interest that Ukraine remain independent and aligned with the West. And we can't ignore that Russia's the invader. They're bombing cities. They're murdering POWs. They rape and pillage wherever they control in Ukraine. They've kidnapped 19,000 Ukrainian kids and dispersed them, throughout Russia. And so I think it's pretty clear we got a moral right to help them out, and it's also our national security interest to do so. I don't know if I could prevent bad decisions on that from the executive branch, but I could be a voice of where I stand, and hopefully we can get these wounds repaired.
If I may, my follow-up question. What do you think are the chances of your tariff bill actually coming up for a vote anytime soon?
I don't think it's in the near term. It's not there. Particularly this 90-day delay probably takes a little bit of the onus off. I plan to make this a long-term objective. And if we go back into this trade thing like we had last week, you're going to see a lot of people want to get on. And if you see the bad after effects, a lot of people are going to get back on. I know I have about 20 people that support me right now. And we only have 3. I think I got a 4th one maybe going on today. But I know there's at least 20 people says they agree with me, but they're reluctant to put themselves in a situation where they're being called a rebel, right? Like the speech that happened. But I guess I feel like I've been through this before, and I don't want to be ugly about my views, but I want to be tactful and diplomatic. But you got to defend what you think is right, and I can't put myself into a pretzel trying to defend the indefensible. That's just not where I'm at my stage of my life. I want to do what's right and be on the right side of history. So I don't know that we can I can't predict what's going to happen the next 2 or 3 years, but I'd like to be that voice on our side, our party, and try to push us in the right direction.
Thank you. Well, my thanks to Danielle Jensen, Congressman Bacon's communications director, and the congressman for taking my question. Frankly, it's refreshing to see a Republican standing up to President Trump and his abandoning of our allies across the globe and attempting to honor the constitutional separation of powers between the executive branch and Congress. We'll keep watch and continue to hold those in power to account. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you back here next week. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.